if you were a sea witch, what animal would you want to be able to shapeshift into?
I mean, I kind of want to say seagull.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
It's so tempting. It's really tempting.
To fly over the ocean like that and be free. I think I need to turn into a bird. I need to make like buttons and become a bird. What would you turn into?
A cool little rat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to be able
like
to
that.
scurry around in the street and pick up crumbs and go beep beep.
I like that.
Yeah.
Rat girl autumn, baby.
Rat girl autumn. I've already had say a violently rat girl-ish summer. So I feel like maybe that's not the move. But you know what? I think that you don't choose the rat life. I think it chooses you.
It chooses you. Well, I'm rendered completely useless by this show. So let's get into it.
Let's just talk about it.
I'm sorry. How is this show real? I thought last week was enough. I'm like, okay, we had the big emotional moment. We had the purgatory coming back to life. Steed is a mermaid, hand holding, come back to me whole thing. Kate Bush. I'm like, it can't top that.
How do you top Kate Bush? You can't.
But then you do.
But then you do.
Because they're like, hey, what if we gave you Moon Scene Round 2 Electric Boogaloo? And I said, huh? Come again? And they said, yeah, watch this. And then that's how I found myself sobbing in bed at 5 a.m. yesterday.
Yeah. Maybe that's where we should start today. This is one of those things we'd want to leave toward the end because it's so special, but I know that your capacity to contain the multitudes of feelings you have about it, it's gonna diminish over the next hour or so that we're talking. So after you.
I live here now. I live here. This is my house. Please make yourself welcome. This is where I live. This is where I rent in the mermaid scene, and this is my house.
You are quite the interior decorator, if I do say so myself.
Thank you. What the hell? Oh my god. So I don't know. Okay. I know last week I said, I'm like, this show is giving me everything I want and subverting expectations, but this scene is something that I have wanted for so long. I don't think I ever said it on the podcast, but I promise you this has been in my head for like 18 months now. So I've always pictured a scene of Ed and Steed together on the ship, like another moon scene. The moon scene. The moon is there. The moon is there and they are there too. And I've always pictured it like they're standing on the edge of the deck, and in my pre-season 2 head, it's always been like they've been together but they're not made up yet, but they're at least amicable, and then whatever has happened throughout the day, they find themselves at the side of the ship talking together. And I've always pictured it of like they both have like their hands on the rail, and because I'm obsessed with hands and the show's giving me so many hands, like Steed, because I want him to initiate touch and anything, like slowly moves his pinky over to Ed's, and then they link pinkies, and then I don't know what happens after that, but that's as far as my little brain went. And the fact that I got a moon scene, but it was better than I could ever imagine. The fact that they the parallels, the symbolism, this is too much. This is simply too much. This is too much. Okay? Because when they were at the rail, I was like, oh, okay, this is similar to what I wanted. And then they cut and they show the moon and them underneath it, and Ed's showing the fish, and I go, oh, okay. You're doing this for me specifically. And listen, in season 1, Steed says, oh, that's a lovely piece of silk you have there. And Ed replies, oh, this tatty old thing in the red silk represents Ed's heart. and it's something that he's kept hidden away for so long until Steed brings it out of him. And then a season later, we get, I like that shirt. Oh, this new thing? And Steed is covered in red. He's wearing red so proudly, and this is a color only Ed has been able to bring out of him, like how David Jenkins or somebody who works for the show said last season how the red silk robe came out on Steed because Ed brings out more color in him. And now here Steed is in love. He knows he's in love, and despite being whim prone, he's ready to show Ed that he is all in for him. And they're standing underneath the moon, and the words, "You are fine things well," are being said by Ed. I can't believe that's real, by the way. I can't believe that's real. Ed, who we know the "You are fine things well" moment was so important to him. One, because of his eyes, and Tyga's eyes acting is part of the reason why I'm 6 feet under right now. And his reaction to lean in for the kiss the first time around in season 1, and also because we see him reflect on this scene in episode 10. But now we know that Steed knows the significance of it all because we saw him reflect on it just a couple episodes ago. And we saw it like with more of his perspective, and realizing that "You were fine things well" might as well have been a way for him to say "I love you" to Ed. And here Ed is saying those exact words back to Steed, showing him, hey, that meant the world to me. And now Steed knows. He knows. And he smiles at him. And this time they kiss. And they both move into it at the same time. And it is so natural, and it is so soft and lovely. I cried so much. It's so much.
A note for the audience: Kaitlin's other favorite trope besides fake death romance is when two people say "I love you" to each other without saying "I love you." So you're getting everything you wanted. Everything. All of it.
Everything I wanted.
If the listeners at home could Google the Charlie Kelly Pepe Sylvia meme, like where he's standing in front of the whiteboard. Oh no, he's standing in front of like
the
a tack board. Yeah. That's what Kaitlin looks like right now. But the key difference here between her and a lot of other fans with their shows is that everything she's describing is very intentional. It's not just fan meta. It's very much the intention of the show always to communicate exactly what it means. Like everything is symbolic. Like everything has meaning. Like the showrunners understand this. It's almost never an accident. And that's really compelling.
Yeah, if you hear meowing in the background, it's because my cat is here too, because she also has a lot of things to say. She watched it with me. She had a great time.
I thought that was you too, honestly. I thought you were really...
Could have been. Might be.
So yeah, it is interesting that they made the decision to parallel things that way. And we talked a little bit last week about the significance of the moon. It comes back again because the first time we get this scene in season 1, we've got a big full moon. But in this season, it's kind of what's the moon phase? What would you describe the moon phase as? Because
it's a waxing gibbous moon, baby.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's so waxing, and you know what that signifies, everybody. And if you don't know, a waxing gibbous moon phase is a time for reflection. It's a time to look back on the life lessons you've learned and the internal growth that has come from them, and use this to adjust your current goals and life path accordingly. I can't. No, yep. Yeah. This has no effect on me.
It's amazing how the moon, which once again is one of Caitlin's favorite objects, space objects. It is really interesting that the moon has become this incredible storytelling tool for the show, to the extent that it's telling us a little bit about where Ed and Steed are, like, romantically and personally at any given moment. And it's also kind of giving you a sense of the time, right? Because, you know, it's a sliver at the beginning of the season, and now it's moving into waxing gibbous.
God.
It's really amazing. It makes you wonder, like, is this going to become prominent through the rest of the season? Are we going to see it again? I think so.
I hope so. I'm sorry, I'm crying again. Imagine like at the end of the season, it's a full moon again. No, I actually can't do this.
He's like, I don't think I can emotionally.
And here's another thing, like going off of that, like whole like it's a time of reflection thing.
Yeah,
I love that Ed asked Steed to slow down. I love that so much because they went too fast last time. And look what happened. And look what, like they said in episode 4, like we're whim prone. Like everything was moving too fast. Everything was on a whim. You can't just run off to China like that. And so now they're like working their way to where they can do those things again. And like for Ed to be able to communicate that with Steed and be like, hey, we need to slow down. And Steed's like, okay, yeah, you're right. And then he asks permission, like, hey, is this okay? And takes his hands. We're gonna, we can do this. We can do this. And he takes his hand, and Ed is like, this? Perfect. And then they play their little
the thumb game.
Little game.
Right.
Fighting their way to the top, and then Ed gets his thumb on top of Steed's, and Steed looks at him and he says, you won. Because he already did win. Because they're not going anywhere. Like, they're both in it. And like Ed said, like, we just sometimes it's better to be patient and wait for these things. It's not like, oh, we're never going to do that. It's just like, we're going to get there. It's just we're going to take our time to it. And it's like, Steed's you won. It's him telling Ed, like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it your way. You won. And I'm okay. I'm here for it. And I'm going to be right there every step of the way for you. And we're going to get those passionate kisses someday. I'm now eating my walls since I ate my floor last week, so.
Your house is falling apart.
The drywall and the accompanying nails.
The moon scene where you live is falling apart. There's like a literal cheese-esque bite out of the moon. Like,
yeah.
It's also really interesting because it seems like this is the overarching theme for that entire episode. It's all about reflection. It's all about growth.
Yeah.
You see Ed having this incredible back and forth with Fang in the boat, where they're talking, and Fang says, and I love this line, do you think you talk so much because you don't quite know how to sit with yourself? I was like, are you asking me? Are you asking me?
Me?
Me personally? No comment. But what a great line too. And like, because we see that come through is like, it doesn't seem like he knows how to sit with himself. It doesn't seem like he's completely comfortable with who he is. And there's like a lot of self-acceptance stuff that's kind of bleeding into this conversation from last season. This also kind of corroborates that argument that, like, he's whim prone, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the case for both of them. And, like, that's another thing that you see in this episode is, like, Steed in the process of becoming a better pirate, being mentored by Izzy, which, yeah! Oh, awesome. Yeah! So cool. You know, that's something he has to kind of grapple with too, is like the distinction between his desire for fine things and like listening to his crew and being receptive and open to their needs as he becomes this, you know, leader for his crew. Yeah. Oh, and then also Lucius, who is trying to heal from the trauma that Blackbeard has caused him, that Ed has caused him, and move on and like find a way around it and reflect, which ends in a really meaningful way.
Okay, let's go there, because I felt like these 2 episodes were such good crew episodes.
Yes, the structure of these episodes, they worked so well together. Thank you.
Yeah. And I read an article from PopSugar. It was an interview with David Jenkins, and he said that he didn't know that these 2 episodes were going to be dropped together when they were first figuring things out. But he said it makes sense.
It does,
because it's episode 4 is Ed and Steed working through some stuff, and then seeing another couple, which we will be talking about, don't you worry. Yep. Seeing another couple that's a bit more mature in some ways, and then seeing that and being like, okay, we can, like, let's give it a shot. And then for episode 5, he described it as 5 is more about them just having a day together, a normal day, which is nice. It means we can turn the show over to other stories. He explains, Ed and Steed are starting to get past their differences, but they're slowly and intentional. And then after exploring their relationship in different ways in both episodes, they finally share a kiss because they're willing to give this a try.
Because David is like a farmer and he's got a trough and he's like, here, little piggies, and I'm one of the piggies in question, and he's pouring the slop in and he's like, here, eat your goddamn slop. And I'm like, I love my slop, David, thank you. Oink,
please give me more slop.
Yeah.
That was another reason why I loved episode 5. Actually, I think episode 5 might be a new favorite episode. Like, it was just such a delight. I've watched it twice now. It's everything that I want this show to be. It's just fun and silly. I laughed so much these 2 episodes. Yeah. And I think it's funny because obviously with how the season opened, it was funny, but there was still like the looming darkness of everything. And it was in the first 3 episodes, it showed how dark this show can get despite it being a rom-com. Right. And it's so beautifully done. But then these 2 episodes were like a gift. Like, here you go. Here, you want to laugh? You want to laugh?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just,
take some of that weight off.
It was so nice. A friend who recently started watching the show, because this is all I do to people, I go, oh, hey, you want a new show? Here you go. She said, how can you not watch all of this in one day? It's like being spoon-fed joy. And I was like, yes. It's exactly like being spoon-fed joy. It just makes me so happy. And like a lot of that is because it's so character-driven. And so to have these 2 episodes both be such strong crew episodes, and for their trauma that they went through to not be used, like, it was humorous but not in a way that was just like, haha, isn't it funny this happened to them and now they're all a little messed up. It's how they're handling it and talking about it that's funny, but still, like, the fact that it was even acknowledged that they're all messed up from it. That's just so much to me. I loved it.
I want to come back to something that you said about the joy you felt over the last couple of days, and I'm gonna add to that and just say, not just to feel joy, but also to feel queer joy right now, unstifled queer joy, which I think is really wonderful, at least in my case, because I feel like, and this isn't so much the case anymore, but in the long history of shows that either have overt queer themes or storylines or subtext, I think it's so rare that everything falls into place in a way that's not predictable, but like comfortably expected.
Oh, yeah.
And for that reason, I mean, I think I just walked away from yesterday kind of like glowing, because I was like, oh, this is where we're going. This is where artists are taking their work for queer people, and I'm so relieved by this. It's such a relief after so many years of shows where that hasn't really been the case, to be able to watch something and just kind of like to nod and like laugh and not feel this like looming presence of a punchline about to drop that's going to shift everything in an uncomfortable way for me as a queer person. So it's really, I mean, it's such a safe space to be in. It's lovely. It's a really lovely feeling.
Oh, that makes me so happy. It just makes me so happy. I think everyone deserves to be able to see themselves in the media that they love, and just the fact that this show has been able to do that for so many people, it's just like, oh, it gives me the warm fuzzies.
You know what else I see myself in? You know what else I see myself in? Lucius's outfit.
Oh my god! Yes! Slayed.
Yes!
Absolutely. I'm sorry. Nathan Foad is giving everything this season.
He served, I fear. He served.
With the cigarette constantly between
constantly the cigarette. He's like Bridget Bardot. I'm like, who are you? Who are you? You're my Lana Del Rey, Norman fucking Rockwell queen. I'm obsessed. I'm so obsessed.
Oh my God.
And for all of his toiling and his trouble over the last couple of episodes to end in a marriage proposal.
I'm so excited. I love Lucius and Pete so much. It just makes me so happy because, like, I think my favorite part of their relationship, I love how absolutely head over heels Pete is for Lucius. I think that's so sweet. Yes. As a character who started off to seem like he's gonna be the guy to be like, no, like, sewing, that's women's work. I'm the tough guy. I want to be like Blackbeard. But this guy who comes off as trying to be so tough is also just the softest, sweetest man who whittles fingers for his boyfriend, now fiance.
Yes.
to make up for the loss of his own finger. And he was like, I've seen death, but not your death. And then he spent time thinking that Lucius was dead, but now he's back. And then
the waking up in the morning and being like, sometimes when I'd wake up in the morning, I thought I heard your voice.
I know. And then when he's just like, you talk all the time about how you almost died, but I never hear anything about the fact that you lived. Pete!
What? This specific episode is just dropping line after line. Like, I wrote some of that down in my diary. I was like, I think I need to internalize some of what's being said here. Whoa!
Real
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
The layers.
The layers. Onions are like ogres. No.
Oh my God.
But and then to that point about Pete being the most doting one, I think that's what makes Lucius being the one to propose so wonderful, is like there's a balance there in the way that they reciprocate love for each other. And the Lucius is a little more like, I wouldn't say he's less direct. I think he's just more aloof because of what he's been through. For him to be the one to propose at the end of all of that is so special to me, because it's yes, they do love each other. That love is even, like, oh, and that, they're gonna get married.
Because there's such like a parallel to Ed and Steed.
Yeah, they are. They're definitely like a huge foil.
Yeah, because oh my God, I'll have to find the post and link it in our description to give proper credit. But I saw this post on Tumblr because of course I did. I live there. They were saying that Lucius and Pete's reunion is literally what Steed dreamed of his and Ed's reunion being, because you've got Lucius and Pete running to each other and falling to the ground. You've got Pete saying, "You've got a beard now," and Lucius saying, like, "Do you hate it?" And Pete's like, "No, I love it." And that was part of the whole dream sequence of like Steed having a beard, and it was an exact parallel of what Steed was dreaming his own reunion to be. And like Lucius and Pete are a much more mature couple than Ed and Steed, and there's such a good representation of like what Ed and Steed can be once they heal more, and once they're able to go all in. And I just love them so much because they were such, like, to me, like such a surprise romance that popped up in season 1, and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, cool, let's go. And I just love them so much. So the fact that like the season's ending in a wedding. Yep. The season's we're getting the lupete wedding. Yep. And it's gonna be great. Yep. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yep. And I don't know how I didn't expect it. Like I have not been doing the internal work of focusing on every relationship in this show. And I realized that this last, like, 2 episodes, that, like, the show is relationship driven, obviously not just for Steed and Ed, but for every single person on the crew. Yes. Like, they do something that I think a lot of shows make the mistake of boxing themselves into, and that's they have multiple relationships. Believe it or not, multiple people can be in love at one time, which is something that I think other shows, they'll say, there's going to be that one will they or won't they couple, and that's it. Yeah. And it's like, no, everybody can love each other. Like, there can be multiple people who have spouses and partners and care for each other, and we can tell all of their stories, and it doesn't, like, the success of the show doesn't have to entirely lean on Jim and Pam and Michael, for different reasons, but Michael. So I love that. I love that.
I just huge fan of character-driven stories. Like, I love that everything that the crew does, it's still moving forward. Like, we're not just like, oh, here's a couple bottle episodes of like the day in the life of the crew. It's like, no, like, we're getting a day in the life of the crew, and it's the crew, both sides of them, handling the trauma that most of them went through.
Yeah.
And trying to work. They're literally talking it through as a crew.
Yeah.
And I adore that. And then in episode 5, you've got them raiding, but then their silly captain gets a cursed coat, and they're all like, you need to get the fuck out of here with that coat because it's cursed and we can't do with that right now. And then they're able to all, like, work together, get the coat out of here. Steve's able to communicate with them and be like, okay, so what would you do? Again, like a dad to his children, trying to give them solutions.
I've nearly flipped off my couch at the scene where Steed is running through the cabin and he goes, they ripped my pocket, those fucking barbarians. And Izzy is sitting at the desk and he goes, a curse is a curse, and once it takes off, and he goes, oh, fuck off.
Though, I'm sorry, he put his whole heart and soul into that. It was so I love this was such a Steed episode. I'm like, this is the most Steed has ever been. Yep. I love that, like, yes, this man wants to be a pirate captain so bad, but also this bitch loves his fine things. He loves his silk. He loves his frilly coats. He has the whimsy.
And
something that I love about David Jenkins in this PopSugar article is that he said, yeah, this season is about making Reese Darby as sexy as possible. And I respect that because they're doing it. I'm sorry, all of the, like, he was so feeling himself in that whole outfit. Like, he's looking at himself in the mirror, he's making little faces, he's swaying hips. The amount of coat flips this man did in the span of 20 minutes.
Yeah. He pulled a real David Tennant.
I
Tenth
know.
Doctor with a lot of the coat flips. To that end, it's also, I mean, a great Reese Darby comedic actor episode, because that's, I think, one of the places that he thrives as an actor. Like, his delivery of things, anyone who's seen Flight of the Conchords knows that he really thrives in that space where he gets to be a silly, goofy guy. So for him to kind of fall into that role again, while also continuing to be the romantic lead, is so awesome. Like, get yourself a girl that can do both. Welcome to the Con O'Neill Corner, where we are going to spend an abnormal amount of time talking about Con O'Neill.
I think this is going to be a weekly thing because, oh my God, this man he's fighting for that Emmy. He's fighting for it, and he deserves it, because
he's not even fighting. He's walking right past everybody.
You're right. You're so right. I take it all back. I never thought that there would be a day where I would cry over Izzy fucking hands. I never thought. Like, I am so intrigued by this little rat bastard so much.
Izzy, I mean, I as somebody who loves to see her men from her shows broken down, I think there was probably always going to be a time for me where I knew I would cry about Izzy hands. Like, I think that this is the direction that we've kind of been moving in since the beginning. Maybe it's more fitting to say that I think David, in writing the second season, recognizes Khan's value and Izzy's value, and that comes through. Like, he has this great epitome that, like, and not to speak for David because I don't know him, but, like, that Con O'Neill's portrayal of Izzy is compelling, and that, like, Izzy is not really the central villain in all of this. He is so much more complicated and fascinating and interesting and honestly likable than that. I think that the way that we reorient ourselves to Izzy in episode 4 is so fascinating, because it starts with this great conflict going on between the crew, where the part of the crew that's been traumatized by Ed is reacting so justifiably and like so sensitively to everything that the side of the crew that was with Steed is doing, and that they're doing out of the goodness of their hearts. But ultimately, the conclusion of that whole conflict is like, oh, we're all really fucked up and we have some things to talk through. And then we bring Izzy back in, who has been day drinking like a 1950s housewife for the last like God knows how long. And there's that acknowledgement from the crew that like, oh, we've got our shit, but this guy, he needs us more
Lucius
than...
literally goes, I think he's a little bit more deranged than the rest of us.
Yeah, there's this great acknowledgement where they all kind of come together in the doorway and watch him drag himself away. And they're like, oh, we, you know, whatever's going on with us, we need to set that aside for a second and help this guy because he's the one that needs that support more than we do. Yep. And that's fucking crazy.
They're a family. They're a family.
And for that to culminate in them taking the leg from the unicorn and giving it to him in that incredible scene, maybe my favorite scene of the season so far. Yeah. Where he unfolds the note and you see that he has this the leg and it's been painted gold and the note says for the new unicorn. Yes. He's a dick, but he's their dick.
But he's their dick, and he's now their unicorn. I wonder how lovely that must have been for Khan to play, as he did recently come out at like a panel.
Yeah.
And it's I don't want to speak for him again. I don't remember exactly what he said or what the words were, but like for this show to bring him to a point in his life, in his midlife even.
Yes.
To where he's now comfortable in putting the words to it, and like season 1 Khan is just like, oh, you'll never see me without my shirt on because I'm old or whatever he said, and then now here he is posting thirst traps on Instagram.
Delightful.
He's shirtless. Like, I love this for him, and it just goes to show like it doesn't matter how old you are, you can still find yourself. Yeah. You know, and you can still find your people.
Right. And for me, this harkens back to that point I made about queer joy. Is like that is one of the benefits of a show like this, is that it gives people an opportunity to be called in. And I think that's something that a lot of shows don't do, especially, you know, the shows that a lot of our community has leaned into over the past decade. And like, there are obviously exceptions to this rule, especially recently. Like, I mean, Heartstopper is a great example of this. League of Their Own is a great example of this. Like, there's been shows recently that I think have done a good job of this and need more support from networks because they are the shows that I think need to be upheld. But like, for the longest time, I think a lot of queer media has revolved around like the implication of queerness. And that's fine. But I think that there is like a smaller, maybe not a smaller, maybe actually a decent portion of the population that could benefit from a show where everything is out there on the table. Like, there are people who really need that, who need somebody to look them in the eyes and take their hands in their face and say, this is for you. You can be you now. It's okay. Here's a show that is making that point over and over again, episode after episode, minute by minute. You can be you now, you know?
Yeah.
Are you good?
It's such a lovely little show. I love it.
Sticking with Izzy, I love the way that this shifts us into the next episode, because we've got our boy back. Like, he's hooved up. Those are his hooves, you bitch. And
those are his hooves, you bitch.
And he's ready to be the ship's new unicorn, right? Which, mind you, quick sidebar, I think is great because like Izzy's character so much in the first season is focused on titles, on retaining the title of Blackbeard's first mate, of potentially being captain at some point. So for them to be like, no, you're this actually. You're the unicorn. You hold this unconventional role on our ship that is so meaningful. And, you know, for him to come to terms with that is, it's so good.
For the unicorn to be like, you know, it's at the front of the ship. It's the one that's like kind of leading its way.
Yes.
And for Izzy to have been the one to lead their way to the revenge, like, unknowingly to him, like not on purpose.
Yeah.
Like he led his crew and Ed's crew to Steed's crew. Like he did that. He's the unicorn all along.
He has been the unicorn all along. I think this new role does a good job of propelling him into the next episode, where he is now kind of acting as a support and mentor for Steed.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Right. Well, as we discussed in the previous episode of this podcast, like, I think we both have a hankering for more Steed and Izzy scenes. Like,
oh yeah,
their dynamic together is so compelling. I think Reese and Khan have really intense chemistry. So to see them in this episode, the montage of Izzy helping Steed, like the fact that we're here right now after everything that's happened between them after all this time, it's like healing and hilarious and just so it really, like, I want to say that it's like, if there's like, I don't know, if there's a God-shaped hole in my heart, this filled it. You know, like, wow. Sure. It's so good.
I love watching people who once were at odds come together as friends, at the very least.
Yeah.
Like, to see Steed, like, tell Izzy, oh, you're learning the basics. Well, your basics, my basics might be a little bit more basic than yours. Maybe you could teach me a few things. Since Ed told me that you're the one who taught him some stuff. And for Izzy to pause and be like, what specifically did he tell you? Like,
yeah.
Tell you? And I was just like,
that's our boy.
I read this in fanfic.
Like, yeah, literally.
Like, I have literally, like, read Steed and Izzy, like, having to work together like this.
Yeah.
And it is just, it's wonderful to see come to life. And at the end, for, like, all of their montage, and for them to actually go onto the ship, for the one enemy on their ship to start to come up with a knife, and for Steed to immediately turn around and shoot the gun in a warning.
Yeah.
For him to turn around, and then he looks at Izzy, and Izzy gives him the little okay
symbol.
Little
okay symbol. Yeah.
It's just like,
look at that. Look at them.
I can't wait to see them work together more. Like, I'm so excited.
Or when earlier, when they start the raid of the ship, and Steed first tries on the coat, and that guy jumps out of the closet to attack Steed.
Yeah.
You see Izzy, like, put his hand on his sword and step forward, like he's gonna handle it before Steed does his punch. And I just think the fact that even happens, the fact that we've moved to a place with their relationship where Izzy wouldn't just let this guy come at Steed, let him die, where he is now, you know, got a hand on his holster. He's now willing to step up and save Steed. That is so awesome. That's so cool.
I love it.
That's so cool.
Izzy is, like, he's moved on from Blackbeard. You know, him shooting at Ed in episode 2, like, that was the breakup. That was over. He's lost his leg because of this man. He's over it. It's over for them. So now to see Izzy be able to move on from that himself, to move on from his infatuation with Blackbeard, and to just find who he is within this found family is so beautiful. And for him to now look at Steed and be like, okay, I kind of understand why you are the way that you are, and I'm kind of here for it. I still don't know how you are alive, but I'm going to make sure that you stay alive. Like, it's just, these characters are so... I've never watched a show where I want to, like, take a shovel and just keep unburying things from it. Like, every single episode we get, I'm just, like, clawing my way through the dirt that is Our Flag Means Death and being like, what else can I find in here? And I always find treasure. I always do.
Yeah. I'm going to sound like somebody writing Tumblr meta, and I'm right too, but, like, there's a lot to chew on. And I'm gnawing. You know, I'm gnawing like a dog on the chew toy that is this show. You know, it's like a bop it. It's like, bop it, trauma, twist it, more trauma, thump it. I don't know the action
Pull
words
it.
for bop it.
Love.
Pull it, love, romance. You know, like, there's so much to I feel like unpack. Staying on the note of Con O'Neill for just a moment longer, and digging things apart. Another great dynamic that I love in this show, like so much, is Izzy and Lucius.
Yeah!
I've been waiting patiently me, a long time proponent of Izzy and Lucius scenes, for them to step up onto the silver screen together.
Onto the silver screen together.
And I was so pleased. The scene where, and you know, there's two great scenes between them, but the one I want to talk about is when the fog comes in, where Izzy basically says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. A shark took my leg. And Lucius is like using a little bit of fiction to help cover up your trauma, you know, like, okay. You know, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Izzy's response is, well, not moving on is worse. And then he does this great thing where he hands Lucius the whale that he's been carving the whole episode.
A little shark. It's a shark.
It's a shark. Okay. And Lucius is like, I actually love this.
It's so
and
cute.
I love it. Earlier, I'm putting the car in reverse when they're having a conversation and they're talking a little bit about like kind of how untethered Lucius is. Early in the episode, Izzy takes his cigarette out of his mouth and puts it in Lucius's salad.
I'm sorry. It was such an Uno reverse from last season of Lucius taunting Izzy and being like, "Have you ever been sketched?" And now Izzy is over here taking the cigarette out of his fingers and trying to put it back in his like. I love it.
They have such intense like psychosexual chemistry. And it really works. It really works. It really, really works. Like it's not that I don't want Lucius and Pete to have a healthy, happy life together, because they will, and I'm manifesting that for them. But I remain committed to the trash. I remain committed to the trashy, toxic queer undertones in this show. Speaking of which, let's talk about the most toxic queer couple that I've ever seen. True Yuri, okay, true Yuri alert. True Yuri alert. True Yuri alert. We've got two amazing women and they do knife play and they're gay. And I love that. I'm so happy.
It was so fun. Please go.
Episode 4. I'm glad we're sticking things in reverse, because this is my time to shine. Like I'm pulling out my top hat. I'm pulling out my tap shoes. Spotlight on. It's time to talk about episode 4. This is my favorite episode of this show ever.
Yeah?
Yes. Okay, listen.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sad.
So, this is a point that I'm going to make to you later today with the cohesive PowerPoint that I've made up about toxic gay people and why they're important to the media. But I'll say this for now. I think when you eulogize about queer people, when all of the characters in your show that are queer are all good, okay? All uncomplicatedly good. Which this isn't a show where that happens at all, mind you. But like when that is the case, it can be... I think that's such a disservice to like queer people, because some of us are evil and like you know what I mean? But that's what I mean is like I think it is like a real disservice to queer characters for like shows to write only queer people to be good, and to not let queer people be a little evil and like participate in toxic relationships. Like I feel like this is really common in like the early 2010s for every gay person to be written not just as like the voice of reason, but also as like, especially in couples, as like the healthy couple. And that can be great for positive queer representation. And that was like essential, especially in the 2010s, because of all of like the landmark Supreme Court decisions that were taking place, because of like, I think the shift culturally that needed to happen then in order for us to introduce more complex queer characters into the narrative. But that said, it's 2023. And I think that gay people need to be evil. That's all I have to say. But no, I think that when only the straight characters in your story are complex, it creates this really rigid boundary about who can be gay and who can't. And that's just not, I mean, first of all, that's not real representation, you know, like not in the slightest. And it's also boring as all get out. Like, So to have a couple in this show that is so fucked up and toxic and yet so passionately into each other, to have knife play, to have them just poisoning each other, to have them setting things on fire and fighting passionately all of the time. It's so good. It's so good, Kaitlin. It is so good. Wee! Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And for those two characters to act as foils to Ed and Steed in this particular episode, it's really compelling because there's like a looming threat there that's delivered of like, if you're constantly living on a whim for each other, it's going to get old. And it's going to fall apart, and before you know it, you'll be selling antiques to nobody, and not living your life. And that's just so interesting. That's so interesting.
Yeah. I just love that, like you said, like Anne and Mary are so passionate about each other, and like they're doing all these things to keep their relationship alive, and like no matter what they do to each other, it's for each other. Like when Anne comes out and she's like, there's smoke, and she goes, I torched it all.
Yes. Oh my God, I died. And they have this great powerful like embrace in the middle of the living room as everything is falling apart. That is so awesome. Though that is why I watch TV. Okay? Like this is who I watch TV for, is for the couples that are so damaged that it just works. It just works, you know? And I promise, I'm not romanticizing like abusive relationships. I promise. It's just within the context of entertainment, in the context of media, there is a place for toxic gay rep. There is a place for it. And it's on my television.
They were such a delight. I was just so excited to see Rachel House as Mary Reed, because I haven't seen her in anything that I haven't loved. Like there's just something about her that is so captivating to me.
She's got a great voice.
Yes! That's what it is. I want her to read me bedtime stories. One of Rhys Darby's comedy specials, she voices like, I don't remember what it was, but she's like a character, and she comes over the loudspeaker. I remember watching it and being like, is that Rachel fucking House? I know that voice anywhere. And I love it. I love her so much. So when she came out, and she was perfect. She was perfect as Mary. So the second she emerged from the woods and was like, teach?
Yeah.
Read? Yeah. I love it so much.
And Minnie Driver.
Yeah.
Minnie Driver. That's all. Minnie Driver, like, oh my gosh, it's so captivating. She's so captivating. Like, the entire time she's on screen, I was just like staring at her. I was like, this woman is the most beautiful woman that I've seen today so far. In classic Emberlyn Hosier, I fall in love just a little bit every day with someone new fashion. I was like, I'm in love with this. For the next 24 hours, I'm in love with this woman.
Only 24?
Well, until I go to my local diner and I meet like a waitress there, and I'm like, wow. But you know how it be. In the same vein, talking about foils, and this is maybe where I'm going to attract some controversy to the podcast.
Ooh.
Yeah. And clearly I am biased toward this because of my desire for conflict, but I think that Ed and Steed in their bickering husbands era is so entertaining. Like,
I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Can we not do this now? We can do it anytime I like.
Anytime. That made me so happy, because I'm like, yeah, you can do it anytime you like.
Yep.
He left you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then for Ed to have that conversation with Mary, where he's like, he's so fragile, and her response is like, an artsy outsider was always your thing. You're caught up in his whirlpool. Like, that's who you are. Oh, it's, I mean, and then like the recognition that Ed has that Steed left him for Mary because he did. I forget this. He didn't know, and for him to smash things.
I also just love I love that the second that Anne and Mary realize that Ed and Steve know each other, there's like a look in both of their eyes where they both at the same time go, oh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
This is gonna be great. And for Anne to be like, oh, well, you must have missed the sea since you left your wife twice for it. And then she just kind of smirks.
Yes. The women loving women and men loving men, like, solidarity in this episode. It's like, this dynamic is so important to me. Like, it is the gay couple going over to the lesbian couple's house and like teasing out the really interesting, like, comparable dynamics they have, and it all ending and everything burning down. Like, that is so fucking awesome. Like, that's so cool. Like, it's just, oh my god. And this is where the controversy gets interjected.
Okay.
I honestly, like, I think for pacing purposes, like, I understand there's only so much you can do with 8 episodes, but I kind of wish we'd spent more time in that bickering husband's space.
I agree. Mm-hmm. So here's where I'm at. I think I said it last episode too, but like, I want them to talk it through as a crew so fucking bad. Like, I want to talk about everything. I want to hear them talk about how Chauncey basically kidnapped Steve at gunpoint, and I want to talk about why did he go back home and all of the feelings that was going on in his head, and like what was going on through Ed's head, why he stayed at the dock, like, not that he like had to go out and look for Steed, but just what made him come to the conclusion of like, oh, he's just not coming and leaving. And I do want more of that, because I was loving the conversation, like when Ed is under the blanket. First of all, I love that that's Ed's go-to comfort thing, is like he needs to be consumed in like a blanket fort or just underneath a blanket. He just needs to not be seen by the world. And first of all, same. Second of all, love that so much. And for when he was just like, oh, Fair, you want to talk about Fair? You know what's so fair? You ditched me and you expect me to melt back into your arms, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was loving it, and I loved it so much, and I want them to talk more about it, and maybe we'll get that. But I'm also at this point now where I'm so biased about this show, where I'm just like, you know, that's okay, because everything that happened, I'm like, I'm good. I just want to see them happy together.
And me, as somebody who likes to stow the fire, I'm very much like, I stayed there, dust collected on my pinned up hair. Like, I need there to be exactly what you're describing. Like, I need that angst, and that's like, I mean, that's ironic, because it's like at the same time that I'm like, I love queer joy, everything is great, I'm also like, but I need them to suffer. So that's like a really tough balance to find, and I think David's doing it. Like, I do believe that, but I really like, I think like when we get to that scene where they're talking about it, I remember just like leaning in and being like, okay, say more, like, say more about this. This is so interesting that you guys are having this conversation.
We waited so long. We waited so long to see what this conversation looks like. And because we were getting, like, hints of it throughout the episode, and, like, the whole explosion at the dinner table, I'm just like, oh, yeah, okay, here we go. And, like, I was doing the same. I was, like, leaning in, looking at my screen, like, okay, what else are you going to say? So I loved it so much. I think because there's only 8 episodes, I just want as much time of them together as possible. And we've already gotten them together so much more than I was anticipating. So that's why I'm like, oh, this is great. I don't care. They're going to be together for the rest of the season. Awesome. This is great. Because there was people who were thinking like, they're going to be separated all season. And they're not. I was like, no, I can't do that. Like, I can't wait. Because like, this is like, their relationship is not what I came to the show for, but it's what I came out of loving the most. Because 1, didn't know it was going to happen. And then 2, to see 2 people who never knew what love was or never thought that they could have love, to finally find this at their age, in their lifestyle, to be able to find each other. I just think it's so beautiful. It is. And so I want more of that. I want them together. That's why I couldn't believe that the way episode 3 went, it went the way it did. Went. Like, I Kate Bush is still... Receiptify check. It went.
Oh yeah, Receiptify check. Tell us where Kate Bush's A Woman's Work sits on your Spotify.
This is
Is
so
it
weird.
not?
She's not there.
Oh, maybe give her some time. Maybe give her some time.
Maybe. Oh, she's at number 11.
She's at number 11. That's so funny. So she's creeping her way in.
She's creeping her way up.
We just gotta let her cook.
I'm just kind of reeling in the fact that they are together, and I'm okay with it not being so. Like when at first, when the episode opened and the crew was just like, yeah, no, we vote banishment, like we're doing that, and then when it was just happening and they were just like letting Ed go off the ship, and Steve was just like, at least talk to me. The only thing Ed says to him is, "You're not a fucking mermaid."
And he's like, what?
First of all, incredible. What does that mean? And then he just leaves. I was just like, we're just letting him get off the ship. We're not gonna go to him. We're not gonna do that. Mm-hmm. And then when Buttons is like, hey, I need to go find this bull so I can be your bird. And Steve's like, okay, yeah. And then they leave and they find Ed. But
the lack of questioning about Buttons' intentions throughout the whole episode is so entertaining to me.
I love this show. I love this show so much.
He's like, I'm gonna turn into a fucking bird. And they're like,
it's all matter of fact.
Yeah, they're like, okay, bet. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it then.
He's like, Steve, he literally was like, I need to get this specific bull so I can be your bird. And Steve goes, okay, let's go. Yeah. And then he tells Anne what he needs for avian transmogrification. She goes, oh yeah, have a look in the back. And the only one who calls out its absurdity is Ed. Yeah. When he tells Steve, maybe don't listen to a man who's becoming a bird.
Yeah. And then later, when they return to the ship without Buttons, that's kind of the thing, is they're all like, okay, are you still sticking with the story that he's a bird? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, they're all, and like Roach and Frenchie and like everybody on the ship, they're all like, okay, that's interesting.
Okay.
That's
so
Silver.
Did he really turn into a bird, or did you kill him?
Yeah. And this is great because as a longtime proponent of Mr. Buttons, it's really important to me that the arc for his season is that he is a sea witch, like, and a sea bird. Like, that is the, like, season 1 of Berlin, who is like, this is my dude, this is my guy, is loving this. She's like, holy shit, he really is my guy. He really is my guy. Yeah. And with Buttons becoming a seagull, that's where we get, I think, one of my other favorite scenes from the season so far, which is kind of the first time that we see Ed and Steed start to, like, show some real, I think, comfort with each other again, kind of start to shift back into their typical dynamic. You get, like, the, you know, Steed offering Ed to come back to the ship for just a little while longer, where he will be dressed in a potato sack and a cat bell. Canonically, that man wears a cat bell, wears a collar with a bell on it. That is something that happens in the canon. Let that sink in. I could write...
Buttons is a bird, and Ed is wearing a cat collar.
And I could write an essay about it, and I won't. Yet.
Yet.
But to have Ed's response to that invitation be the soft, quick yes. And then Steed's response be like, great!
That was so cute.
Right there, runs away. So embarrassing and adorable, and like,
he zoomed away so comically fast.
And the look
right there,
and the look on Ed's face, that is going to be one of my favorite looks of the season. Like that genuine fondness, like that. Oh, it is so over for him. That genuine, like, intense affection that you see on his face, and then for Buttons to just slowly pop up and be like,
that was the funniest thing.
The sea is my love.
The sea is my love.
Jesus Christ. It's so, that's comedy, baby.
This is television. This is television. This is perfect. It was beautiful. Like, there was a moment where when Steed ran away, I was like, oh no.
It's happening again.
Oh, no.
The trauma.
It's happening again. I was so afraid. I was like, they're gonna do it again. Steed's gonna run away. Something is gonna happen to Ed. And I was like, this is gonna be, oh no. I was so scared. And then
of me. Sorry.
And then like when the rustling happened in the background, I was like, oh shit, here we go. But it was just Buttons turning into a bird.
It was, don't worry, not this time.
Don't worry,
it's just Buttons turning into a bird.
Turning into a bird. And then for Steve to come back and be like, hey Ed, could you actually like hurry up a little bit, because I don't know where I am. I need help. And then he's like, yeah. And he like kind of has to like collect himself before he goes. And then like he kind of brushes his hair back and then he runs. Like it's just.
And I think that's where we should end. Right? Is with the central message of that scene, which is like, to love the sea, this is what Button says, as she must be loved, requires change. And Ed pushes back on that. He's like, people don't change. And Buttons is like, hold my beer.
He said, bet. And then he turns into a bird so he can properly love
cook. Let me cook. And Ed is like, oh shit. Maybe, and like this is, I think, his like moment of realization. Like this is where he recognizes like, oh, maybe I can change. Like, and that's kind of what propels us forward into the next episode. And he's like, oh fuck yeah, brother, as we see Buttons fly away. And it's like, it's like, yes, you can change. Like you can be someone else. You fucked up, you made mistakes, you traumatized people, you hurt people, but you can be different. And you have an opportunity in this man that loves you and has forgiven you for all of this and never doubted you and knows you so well. You have the opportunity to change, and he takes it. So, fuck me.
Be the bird. I can't believe that the motivation for a character to finally let himself be in love and fall in love and give love a chance is to watch his friend turn into a bird.
That's the show, baby.
And that's on David Jenkins logic.
I love David Jenkins logic. This season is so good so far, and I am not normal about it.
I am not normal about it. I am so excited to get into the next couple episodes. We only have 3 left, which makes me sad, but also...
I know.
But I'm excited.
Me too.
I'm excited to see what comes next. We get episodes 6 and 7 next week.
Oh my god.
If this is how I felt every week so far, and every week has only been 2 weeks, but there's been 5 episodes that have completely messed me up.
Yeah.
I can only assume it's just good. The mental health is just gonna decline from here. And I look forward to it.
The invoices are stacking up for my therapy sessions. Yeah. Listeners, take joy in being in the middle of the season. Ground yourself in the fact that we are halfway through and there's still so much to come. I know it feels like it's gonna be over soon, so just, live in this moment with us. Be the seabird, I guess. I don't know.
Be the seabird.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to your podcasts. We will be breaking down the remainder of the season with you over the remainder of October and loving and crying and screaming over every moment of it.
Bye.
Bye.